Welcome to Monster Chats, presented by Monster VoIP, where we share the tools, methods, and best practices that business leaders use to build new connections, strengthen relationships, and impact sales in organizations of all shapes and sizes. If you have any questions that come up during today's episode, please text them to 424-378-6966. Please welcome the founder of Monster VoIP, your host, Colin Mitchell.
All right, on today's episode, we're going to be talking with David Meltzer of Sports One Marketing. David and I are going to be talking about authenticity, entrepreneurship, creating goodness in the world. I'm Colin Mitchell, the host of Monster Chats and the founder of Monster VoIP. David is a 3-time international best-selling author, a top 100 business coach, the executive producer of Entrepreneur's #1 digital business show, Elevator Pitch, and host of the top entrepreneur podcast, The Playbook. His newest book, Game Time Decision Making, was a #1 new release. David has been recognized by Variety Magazine as their Sports Humanitarian of the Year, awarded by Ellis Island Medal of Honor. And most recently at the Super Bowl, David was honored as the Most Valuable Philanthropist. David, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much. I always love those bios, but most importantly, I'm here to help people learn lessons so they can be happy.
Yeah, and that's what I love. You know, I've been following you here more recently, and I just love how positive you are all the time. And I know it irritates some people, but I love it, you know.
You know, I stopped voting for what other people want a long time ago. So if the worst thing that people can say about me is that dude's too positive, so be it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be talking about building authenticity, sharing positivity, and becoming a great entrepreneur. But before we dig in, tell us a little bit about your story. You know, tell us something that wasn't in your bio. You know, where did you start and how did you get, to where you're at today?
You know, it's interesting because that last issue we're going to talk about, entrepreneurship, is about making money. Entrepreneurship is about innovation and monetization. Innovators are different than entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are the ones who monetize the innovation. So my journey started with my relationship with money. Grew up poor, single mom, 6 kids. She worked 2 jobs, packed my lunch in a paper bag, and dinner in a paper bag. She filled up turnstiles at the 7-Eleven and other convenience stores with greeting cards just so we could eat. So in my mind, I was born, as you can tell, with the happiness gene. So I'm super positive. And I think that's the first distinguishment of people is know what quantum memory you have, know what potentials you have and where you need to expand and accelerate to your potential, but know what that potential is. For example, if I wanted to be a professional basketball player, I have a quantum potential to be a professional basketball player. No matter what, I think if I worked every day consistently, persistently in the pursuit of that potential, I'd probably be a starting guard at the Jewish Community Center over 50 League. That's about my quantum level of potential. And so I think the same things with happiness, that some people just are born with a different level of happiness, and that we all should work and strive towards the potential of that. So for me, I was happy, had no money, and the only time I wasn't happy is when I caught my mom crying over financial distress. Car breaks down, worried about summer camp, how are we going to eat, some basic needs, and I'd catch her crying. So in my 5-year-old mind, as my dad left, I was like, you know what? Money buys happiness and love, because that's the only thing I'm missing. And if I have money, then I'm going to be happy all the time. So I went on a journey about money, and my journey was a millionaire 9 months out of law school. I ran Samsung's phone division, the world's first smartphone. I married my dream girl that I met in the 4th grade and hated me until I was 26. Everything that I did in my life revolved around money, and it was reinforced again and again that money buys happiness and love. 2 years before I lost all my money, though, I went through a great transformation. 2 years before 2008, I was 36 years old. I was running the most notable sports agency in the world called Lee Steinberg Sports and Entertainment. Most people know Lee from the movie Jerry Maguire. Mm-hmm. At 36 years old, I was Midas in my own mind. I was Midas in a lot of other people's mind. We had discussed earlier, some people might think I'm annoying because I'm so positive. And I'm like, well, I really don't care what other people think, or I'm not voting for what other people want from me. because then I end up with what they want for me, and they're not original. They're not authentic. They don't want anything that hasn't been done before. I want things that haven't been done before. I want things that people think are impossible, not possible. I want things that are extraordinary, not ordinary. And so I stopped voting for what other people want, because when I was 36 years old, I had what everybody else wanted, right? I had friends that I didn't want. I had things I didn't need. I was, trying to get the approval and votes of people that I didn't like. I was trying to buy things I didn't need or want. And I went through a paradigm shift in 2006, 2 years before I lost everything, that money doesn't buy love. Money, it's extremely important. I call it a currency. That means it's an object of energy that we put into the flow to get what we want. Green card power of money gets so much, gold card more, platinum card more, but black card money gets everything. I had black card money, but I didn't have black card faith. And so I shifted the paradigm into a faithful one, meaning that I put other people first. I wanted to create a void for the universe to fill. I had faith that if I did the right things according to values, personal, experiential giving and receiving values, everything would come to me, but not as a trade, right? I'd always been, philanthropist. I've always been, giving of my stuff, but there was always a price: guilt, resentment, offense, some kind of trade. I wanted respect. I wanted something in return, recognition. I shifted the paradigm in 2006 that I wanted nothing other than to help other people and provide value. Yeah. And for the last 13 years, 2008 came, I lost over $100 million, but I wanted to prove that this faithful combination blend with entrepreneurship, with money, was the best way, most efficient, effective, and statistically successful way to make money, help people, and have fun. And as I developed my own business with the Hall of Fame quarterback, Warren Moon, a marketing and media company that has just exploded and done so well that it even allowed me to build my own media company and build my own brand. Although, we joked around at the beginning as well that, I got to be honest, I don't know who the hell you are. That's exactly why it's important, because there's so many people out there, right? I worked, when I started building my own brand, I worked with a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. He was kind of the leader in the entrepreneurial space of media. Yeah. And, we were joking around, and he said, "So why do you want to do this?" I was helping him with his sports agency. And I said, "Well, I want to empower 1 billion people on earth to be happy." And he looked at me and goes, "I've never heard that one." I said, "Yeah." I said, I want to empower 1,000 people like Colin, that has a reach that Colin can empower 1,000 people to empower 1,000 people, and 1,000 times 1,000 is 1,000,000, 1,000,000 times 1,000 is 1 billion. If I can empower 1 billion people in my lifetime, in the next 60 years, to be happy, I'll change the collective consciousness. I'll change the way abundance looks, and we'll live in a world of more than enough. And I can change the world. Me, humble Dave Meltzer, that Colin didn't know of until I got on his show, can change the world by changing the perspective in this collective consciousness. And all I got to do is find 1,000 people over the next 60 years. So that's what I'm looking for. And he says, "Well, how are you going to get there?" I'm like, I think about 2 people a year. I want to find 2 Collins a year. So I want to build content to not followers. I don't care if I only have 1,000 followers, as long as those 1,000 followers are empowering 1,000 people to empower 1,000 people. That's literally what I told him. And he being who he is, got super excited about me being kind of the Noah's Ark of happiness. We both agreed at the time that gratitude and happiness were the most powerful virus ever, that they're the only things that spread literally by witnessing it. It strengthens our immune system. And here we are 3.5 years later, and it has never been more powerful of a message, more relevant of a message in spreading happiness and empowering others to empower others. And like I told you, man, I just need 1,000 people. And that's my life's journeys. And I think I can get there by making a lot of money, by helping a lot of people and having that fun. Notice, I believe I got to make a lot of money first so I can help a lot of people. It takes money to build content. It takes money to travel around the world. It takes money to give the people, to empower them as well.
Yeah. Wow. So let's go back for a second. Tell me, in 2006, when you had that mind shift, what happened? Was there like a really low point or a bottom where, or
there's 3 things.
Yeah.
Three things. Yeah, it's a good question. So the first thing that happened was when I was 30 years old. And it was an interesting thing. When I was 30, I was a multimillionaire. I had married my dream girl, like I told you.
Mm-hmm.
My wife, I'd met in the 4th grade. I had my best friend in the 6th grade camp ask her to go steady for me, and she said no. So I threw an egg at her. But at 30 years old, I had everything. In my mind, I was Midas. I was ego-driven, money-driven, and my dad, who left when I was 5, who was my hero until I was 10. And what happened at 10 was that he forgot my birthday. And that didn't really affect me as much as the fact that when I asked him, how could you? He said, well, I didn't forget your birthday. I don't believe in birthdays. And the reason that's so important is I learned at that day at 10, when my dad went from hero to zero in my life, that he was a liar. He was a cheater, a manipulator, a back-end seller, an overseller. And a lot of guilt came over me because for the last 5 years, the 70s, you had a whole bunch of deadbeat dads that weren't paying their wives, and they were off marrying girls half their age and spending all their money on convertibles and big houses. My dad was my hero. I would tell my mom, why can't you be more like dad? And meanwhile, she was super humble and never said a negative thing. Anyway, fast forward to 30, I get a birthday present from my dad. I open it up. I put it on. It's a sport coat. It fits perfectly. I start to cry. My wife says, what's the matter? I said, I can't believe my dad actually cared enough to give me a present, but to find out exactly my sizing. So I open it up to see the size or the label, right? To see if it's like Happy Birthday Dave inside. He had torn out all the lining and pockets. I immediately went from tears of joy to tears of pain. And I called my father completely furious, saying, why are you punishing me? He said, what are you talking about? I go, I got your birthday present. Why are you punishing me? Why would you give me a jacket I can't wear? He said, because it's not for wearing. I said, what's it for? He says, it's to hang in the closet to remind you every single day that you're just like me. And I'm like, what kind of evil-driven present is that? I'm nothing like you. You're a liar, a cheater, a manipulator, back-end seller, overseller. I'm nothing like you. I'm happily married. I'm a multimillionaire. And he said, Dave, money is not your God. He goes, that jacket is there to tell you that you can't take anything with you when you're gone. You're making the mistake that I made, that I wanted to be the richest man in the cemetery. And I love you too much to allow you to make that mistake. I've made tons of mistakes in my life, my dad said, but I can't allow you to make this mistake, please. At that time, at 30 years old, I just told him, F off, man.
I kind of I got chills a little bit from you telling me that story.
Yeah. So I lived my life in that same trajectory, surrounded myself with the wrong people, the wrong ideas. 2006, I'm running Lee Steinberg, this unbelievable sports agency. The who's who in sports are our clients. I go golfing with my best friend, the guy who asked my wife to go steady at 6th grade camp. I hadn't seen him in a while, so I asked him, man, how come you don't hang out with me? I want to take you to the Super Bowl. We can go with all these Hall of Famers. We can go to the Grammy Award, the ESPYs, what do you want to do? He said, Dave, I don't want to hang out with you because you're hanging out with the wrong people. I said, yeah, but I'm not doing what those people do. You know me, man. You know what I'm about? He said, yeah, I know what you're about. Stop lying to me and definitely stop lying to yourself. I left crying. I was so shook because I knew he was right.
Yeah,
I knew he was right, and it ate me alive. 2 weeks later, I went to the Grammy Awards with a rapper, became really famous rapper since then in the last 14 years. His name is Little John. Pepsi commercials. Yeah. So John and I were partying with a bunch of friends at the Grammy Awards. I had lied to my wife. I changed clothes in the car. I came home intoxicated and high at 5:30 in the morning, and there's my wife waiting for me. And for the first time in a long, long time, let alone in my life, my wife told me she wasn't happy. She told me that she was going to leave me, that she told me that I better take stock in who I was and what I wanted to become, or she was definitely leaving. Now, I immediately got furious. I'm like, what are you talking about? Have you no gratitude for me? Have you looked around me, the cars, the houses, the ski mountain, the golf course, the boats, the motorhome, the nanny that's in the other room? You've never worked a day in your life. Are you kidding me? I went to sleep. I woke up in the morning even more pissed and hungover.
Great combination.
Yeah. So all I could think about was how I was going to take all my money from my wife, how I was going to take my kids from my wife, what I was going to do, how offended I was, how resentful I was, how a need to be so superior to her. How dare her? I remember asking myself, how dare her? I was going to, call my law school buddies and, be like, hey, give me the best divorce lawyer. And I was so frustrated and mad. I remember I looked over in my closet. I probably hadn't seen that jacket. It was like a light was shining on it. It was like that book that you haven't seen in 20 years and you read and it just hits your soul, man. I looked at that jacket. All I could think about instantly, I started to cry. I'm like, oh shit, I'm just like my dad. I'm just like my dad.
You still get pretty emotional thinking about it now?
Yeah, because it changed my life. Because I sat there crying, thinking about who I was, who I had become, and what I wanted to become. And that's when, for me, my life changed because I was going to live with 4 things that I grew up with. Gratitude. Gratitude gives me perspective. It always had made my past awesome, my present better, and my future brighter, no matter what the circumstances was. It was ingrained in me by my mom. She wouldn't let me come down with an ungracious attitude. If I came down with a negative attitude, she'd send me right back up to my room and say, you better put a different mindset on. 2, forgiveness. I had lost my forgiveness. I could not forgive myself. And I definitely wasn't forgiving of others. And forgiveness always gave me peace in my life. I always lived in peace. Then most importantly, accountability. I had gone into blame, shame, and justification. I was living my life so far below the line. Nothing was my fault. Nothing. And I had to ask myself 2 questions. What did I do to attract this to my life? And what am I supposed to learn from it? I had to readjust my mindset to find the light, the love, and the lessons in everything that I do, no matter what circumstances, good, bad, or indifferent. I had to find the light, the love. I had to learn to love everything that I did. That's what got me to where I was. That's what took me to a millionaire 9 months out of law school. That's what took me to a multimillionaire in my 20s. That's what made me a philanthropist. That's what made me a good husband and a good father and a good brother and a good uncle and all those things that I am. And then finally, I explored inspiration. Now, everyone always knows that I'm motivated. I was the team captain of a college football team, high school football team, Pop Warner football teams. I was the inspirational person, but motivation wasn't good enough. Motivation would get you up, but inspiration I needed to understand because it's going to get you there. And what I started to see was that inspiration was effective communication. How effectively was I communicating with the light, the love, and the lessons that I always was connected to, that I carried more power in my pinky to light up all of Manhattan? And what clouds was I creating in my life to interfere with that extraordinary power, that light, that lessons and love? And then appreciate it when I had it, add value to it. Mm-hmm. And then how was I effectively communicating with everything it was connected to? So in essence, the sun, I'm a solar powered battery that appreciates, adds energy to what I receive from the sun. And then how am I sharing my light with other people and what interferences were I causing there? When I took gratitude, forgiveness, accountability, and inspiration, and I put those all together and started living my life that way, when I lost over $100 million in 2008, I was prepared. And when 2020 came and the COVID hit, I'm way more prepared because I take gratitude, empathy, forgiveness, accountability, and inspiration as a practice. I practice ending fear every day of my life. And that's what allows me to be so positive. That's what allows me to attract what I want in my life, that allows me to vote for what I want in my life and to empower others to get what they want in their lives.
Oh, what an amazing journey, right? So I can't even imagine if you didn't go through that in 2006, what 2008 would have looked like for you.
Yeah. Right?
Because prior to that, you still had that mindset that money was going to buy your happiness, which clearly you found it didn't. And then just the series of events that happen, like the jacket, and then the conversation with your wife followed up by seeing the jacket.
Yeah, I think I would have been dead. Like, I'm not sure I would have made it to 2008, but if I did, I remember my wife distinctly saying, if you don't take stock in who you are and what you will become, you may not even be here. You're going down the road. And, the most important thing, and this applies today, I know we're talking about entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
The one lesson that I've learned is called segmentation. And segmentation is so important because we rely on our senses and our memory, and both are really faulty. They're not very accurate. They're not very powerful. Our senses and our memories, we have to know that construct exists. And let me explain why. Mm-hmm. Because whether they're good habits or bad habits, they're incremental habits. And so segmentation says to me, if I take a small measurement, one that I can't be aware of with my eyes, let's say a millimeter, like I could show you 2 sticks and ask you which one's a millimeter more than the other, you couldn't tell me with accuracy. You could guess, right? If I gave you 10 sticks that were 1 millimeter difference, you couldn't pick out the one of 10, right? So this is the problem that I learned with human nature and with the way that we evolve, is that we can't be aware of the growth or the degradation that we're occurring, right? But there is acceleration and exponential growth occurring. So if you segment out a millimeter and you double it and keep on doubling it, there's so many segments until it gets to an extraordinary length, one in which becomes very apparent which one has been accelerating and growing, right?
Right.
20 segments later, if you keep doubling a millimeter, you'll easily be able to pick it out. 40 segments later. And so what I was doing was I took all the good habits that I segmented over the first 30 years of my life, 36 years of my life, and started at 30, maybe 28, started segmenting bad ones. Mm-hmm. And that 10-year period probably would have manifested as it accelerates, because remember, it keeps doubling, and what happens too is time accelerates. So let's take 20 segments, like my philosophy of how to get 2 million ambassadors. Well, it's 20 segments of 2 a year. So initially I said, I just want 2 ambassadors a year to get me 2 ambassadors. It turns into 4 turns into 8. Well, after 20 years, when I was 70, I would have 2 million ambassadors getting me 2 billion ambassadors. Things get real then, right?
Yeah.
But what if you add acceleration into it? Meaning year 1, you get 2, then 11 months later, you get 4, and then 10 months later, you get 8, 9 months later, you get 16, 7 months later, right? And this is the way it normally occurs because things accelerate and exponentially grow. Yeah. Negative things do too. So when you ask me, Dave, compared to where you were at 2006 to 2008, and then a disaster like economically happened to me, I can only see really, really exponentially bad things in my life, including not being here.
Yeah. Yeah. And this message is, and I appreciate you being, so honest about your story, because I think it's so important that people do worship money and these material things, right? So it's so important to hear it from somebody who has had so much success and to hear what that's like, right? When money's being worshipped and when those small bad habits start to outweigh the good habits and the person you could become that you almost don't even recognize.
Yeah. And the common denominator between all successful, happy people is that they must be what they can be. And then furthermore, you hit it right on the spot of, money. So my motto, I trademarked it, is make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. Money is super important to me, but it just shifted. It's an energy. So here's the way that I look at money. I can't give what I don't have. Money comes through me for others. It allows me to expand and accelerate. Money is important only for one reason, because options and opportunities are important if you use it the right way. Money will not buy happiness or love, but it will allow you to shop. It will give you more options and opportunities. Money will allow you to shop. And if you shop for the right things, you're going to be happy. If you shop for the wrong things, you're going to be unhappy. I promise you, if you have a ton of money right now and you decide that you want to invest into a heroin habit for yourself, really bad things are going to happen to you. I promise you. I guarantee it. 100% sure. But if you go ahead and build, like I have in the past years, villages in Africa, community centers, give scholarships to kids to go to college, buy food meals for people right now, giving to the Robin Hood New York Relief Fund, or, other places. If that's what you want to shop for, I promise you, money can buy you happiness if you shop for the right things.
Yeah. And I know you like to say that you like to, get $20 and give $100 worth of value. So for those that are listening, I did bring a $20. Oops, upside down. I got a $20 bill here for you. And I think so far we've definitely got more than $100 worth of value.
Right on. Well, I'll send you 100 too. I don't mind. Yeah, it's to that matter, it's called the 120 exchange rate. Yeah. Is that it's more than just the actual quantifiable value, which I only do business in. So when I'm an executive coach or a consultant or advisor, all the things I get hired to do, for me, I guarantee, I don't lock anybody in anything. I guarantee that value quantitatively, because I believe subjective value is in everything. I don't know if you've seen some of the videos, but I call it Barney value. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so it's the purple dinosaur value. So many people live their whole life in the Barney value, meaning I love you, you love me, nobody's gonna make any money. Knick knack, paddywhack, we're both broke. This is not an effing joke. I'm serious, because I see so many people. I'm a connector, I'm so-and-so the connector. I'm like, that's great, you're a connector. I'm Dave Meltzer. I provide quantitative value. I guarantee that you're going to get $100 worth of value for any $20 that you give me, or don't give me the 20. And I'm not going to lock you in for a year and say, oh, it just takes time. No, the time is now, and I guarantee it every month, and I only work month to month. That's value. And it's not just me saying it, it's me carrying the energy, not just in a quantifiable way, but carrying the energy. I'll go to a party, and if my mom doesn't light up and the room doesn't light up, you look at people like Mother Teresa and Deepak Chopra, who was blessed to be with a couple of days, like everyone lights up around him. That means you're carrying 100 energy. So I practice that in the morning. I actually use as part of my meditative practice, envisioning $100 bills all over my room and me handing them out and collecting 20, just to get the feeling, so that when you and I are in an interview calling, that you're like, man, this guy brings it. I brought my $20 bill. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. And it's the energy that I have and the quantifiable value of the ideas in which I share that you can execute on pragmatically, that actually allows you to materialize that value and say to yourself, I can list out 3 different things. Look, I'll give everybody 2 weeks vacation. You want to talk $100 value? Look, I believe in studying time, right? I look every day to try to see if I can shave 4 minutes off my day, because it's 24 hours of productivity a year. Well, 80 hours a year is wasted right now when you lose your wallet, your keys, and your phone. So while you're in this COVID pause, why don't you practice putting your phone, your keys, and your wallet in the exact same place, and then you can say, Dave Meltzer gave me 2 weeks vacation, because it's 80 hours of productivity.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. These are things, that I think about, that I carry, and that allow me to share and empower others. What? To be happy.
Yeah. And the key to that, and tell me if I'm wrong, but you trying to shave that time is to give yourself more time to help more people.
Provide more value. So the lens that I use, the Meltzer Kaleidoscope lens, is threefold. One is that productivity that you just said. How much value and service can I provide? 2, a lens of accessibility. How accessible am I to others so I can provide that value? Right. And then also, how am I accessing it? So people forget the second series of questions they need to ask besides how can I provide value or service. The second series of questions is, do you know anyone that can help me? And there's 2 types of people. As an entrepreneur, I used to be, and I was taught this, by the way. I'm doing a training on Friday, which is tomorrow, about this. I do them every Friday, but it's about objections, obstacles, voids, and shortages that we perceive. They're called gatekeepers. And anyone that's been in sales has been trained to get past the gatekeeper. Not me. I train people about sponsors and power sponsors. Everyone that I come upon is a sponsor of mine, meaning if I ask a series of questions in an appropriate way, they should be able to know somebody that can help me. And 2, if I ask the appropriate questions in the right series, in the right way, then there are people that are also power sponsors that can help me themselves and find some people to help me create a flow and acceleration to not only allow me to get in front of, but allow others. Money doesn't stop. It's just slowed down. So let's speed up the money and let's carry everybody in its way and let's get it back into the flow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, tell us about like people that are, there's a movement of people trying to be more positive, being more authentic, being more helpful, being more giving rather than taking. And I think you probably have contributed a lot to that movement. But for the people that are maybe still struggling with that, how can they get started?
Right. You got to lower the bar. And so there's a variety of people on that spectrum. There's the people that are suicidal, hopeless, depressed, anxious all the time. They've gotten out of the learning zone, got so far out in the anxiety zone that their learning zone has become the size of their comfort zone until they can't even get out of bed. So what I tell people is no matter what state you're in, lower the bar to do a good deed. Lower the bar to do a good deed. The only cure that I know that can move us in the right direction to get us motivated so we can become inspired is to get that ball rolling, is to do a good deed. Because that vibration, the truth vibrates the fastest, that vibration of doing something good is uncomparable to anything else. I promise you, I tell people unemployed all the time, what should I do, Dave? Go volunteer, man. If you're not working, go volunteer. This is before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID, because there's going to be, my biggest concern right now is for the millennials. Anyone 30 and under has never experienced a tight job market. They've had their only perspective. It's not them to blame, right? They've been entitled with the best. We went from the best employment status ever into the depression percentages of unemployed people. And unfortunately, the workhorses, 30 and under, the ones who are technologically advanced in the workhorses, have only needed a pulse in order to get a job. So they've only interviewed and known that they just go ahead and get something else. And they have no idea what it's like, right? And I'll give you an example. Way back in the internet boom, when I was CEO of Samsung's phone division and we had the first smartphone, there was a shortage on Sand Hill Road. There was a shortage in the Silicon Valley of engineering. We hadn't built the chain of, Indian engineers and Philippine and all the outsourced engineers that we had. That wasn't in existence in 1999. And so in the 90s, when I went up there in 97 with every pass in the middleware, I would have to hire kids out of college that haven't graduated. So Cal Poly SLO, for example, was a school that was close, and I'd pay $250,000 a year for a junior in college. Some of the kids couldn't drink. Right? I mean, that's how young they were. Well, the bust happened, right? The internet, the NASDAQ crashed, everything fell. And I still to this day, it's one of the things I regret the most. Because imagine your perception of the job market being that, and then all of a sudden not being able to get a job, but you have a BMW and a big house in Marin County. And then you're out there and people are like, look, man, with your experience, I can give you 30 grand. Yeah. And then having to learn that lesson. This is the lessons that are going to happen right now.
Yeah.
This is the lesson. And it's not a bad lesson, right? Because we're going to learn about money and your relationship to money, and we're going to learn about opportunity, and we're going to learn that this is the margins of millionaires. This is where millionaires are made. And that if you actually develop skills and have capabilities that are synergistic and supplementary and aligned with who's making money at the time, you'll always make money. So that's why I've always developed a variety of skills. I've always acquired knowledge through asking for mentorship and help. And I've always had the desire to must be what I can be, to align myself at any time with those people that are making money. Because no matter what happens from depression until now, there's always been people that make money. I just want to have a skill set that's ubiquitous enough to align synergistically or supplementary to who's making money, because I could either buy or sell myself, be an agent, a broker, a channel partner, or some sort of capacity to shave my portion of the margins of millionaires out in order to be very successful monetarily, which allows me to help more people and have more fun. In other words, be happy.
Yeah. Yeah. So the people that really have no experience of a tough job market and, have been maybe overcompensated, for certain skill sets, are really going to have a hard time.
Yeah, well, first, to be fair to everyone, no one is ever overcompensated, right? My wife drives me crazy about this. The house next door went for sale. That she literally 4 weeks ago goes, "Oh my God, that thing is a cash cow. I would buy it in a second." And now she's like, "I can't believe it went for sale. Look, what do you think it's worth?" I'm like, "It's worth what someone will pay for it.
Right.
You're worth what someone's paid." I can never pay somebody what they're worth, but I think more importantly, you need to focus, everyone today, whether you have been through bad economies or not, on your skills. If you're not using this time to develop your skills and acquire knowledge, and be inspired, you're making a huge mistake, because people are going to hire people with skills.
Right.
They're not going to hire you because they need somebody anymore to fill a spot because you have a pulse and you can do a 50% job and they can teach you these skills. The market has just tightened so great. The biggest thing for my business is, especially on the media side, it was really difficult to find talented, experienced people for content. So we had to teach on the fly. Now I got like guys that have been working for studios and the NFL and huge places that are out of work. Right? And you're talking about guys that have done, Academy Award movies, that want to go ahead and do Dave Meltzer videos. How lucky am I? Right?
Yeah. But I want to go back 1 second, because you said something extremely important, right? You said you always tell people that are unemployed, go volunteer. Right. And I don't want to overlook that, because I think it's an extremely important thing. Right. Because, something one of my mentors taught me is the more I can think or help, the more I think of others, the less I think of myself. Right. So I am my own I'm my worst enemy. Right. So, and you talked about the vibrations that will produce for somebody who's focusing their energy on helping others, even though their circumstances might be, not ideal. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, that's the idea of making room for what you want. That when we are out there providing service or value to others, and we volunteer that in whatever respect with no attachments, things happen for us, right? And I'll tell you why, because there's a formula that I utilize with time. It's what I pay attention to and give intention to equals the coincidences I want. It's the formula of lucky people. When someone tells me that I'm lucky, I just say to myself, yes, I pay attention to and give intention to the coincidences I want, and therefore you perceive me as lucky. One of the attentions, the highest vibration that we talk about is the truth, goodness, happiness. We've talked about it again and again through this journey of mine. How do we get there? Well, that one vibration that's so high is to help. Right? To give and receive help is one, and we are one with others. How do we connect? We talk about the connection to the sun and the connection to all the people we distribute the energy. The only way that we're in true symbiosis of both connections at one time, when we feel the oneness of the universe, the power of the universe coming through us, is think about it, when we're helping others, because we're taking everything through us for others. When all we're doing is for people, right? Nothing for us. That's a one-way street. When I was a multimillionaire and it was just for me, right? Just for me, I was filled, but there's only so much of me. But when things come through me for others, in other words, volunteering, through me for others, I am in the flow, the true connection of the universe, harnessing all the power, the lessons, and the light. And when you get into that flow, you start attracting things with a higher vibration. You start raising your awareness, and all of a sudden, opportunities that have always been there are simply put in front of you, and your whole life changes. When they talk about one touch of favor changes your life, that's all it takes. And let me tell you these stories. How many people you know that were like the nanny, or they were the workout guy for some billionaire? And then out of nowhere, it's like, yeah, I'll give you $2 million. Go ahead and start your business. And then they end up being multi-million. Look at Maverick, right? Maverick is LeBron's boy. LeBron had tons of friends. The difference of Maverick compared to all of LeBron's friends growing up is he must be what he can be. He had something special, and LeBron gave him a touch of favor, and now Maverick is a billionaire. But, Scooter Braun, all of these people, they got one touch of favor, but they were prepared for it because they were giving people, they allowed that energy to come through them. And so I suggest anyone at any stage should always have a balance, but especially if you are looking, then give and allow the universe to provide that touch of favor, allow things to come through you for others.
Yeah. And if there's one thing I think that people take away from this, I hope it's that, right? Because I think that the non-believer or the skeptic of that is, if they don't have that experience, they need to try it. I mean, helping others is so powerful. And anybody who's not focusing on that is really missing out.
Truth vibrates the fastest, and giving is the truth. Giving is the only thing that it's like happiness, right? So when you give, serotonin is released in your brain. So even at a biochemical level, it makes you happy.
Right.
The person who is receiving the gift, serotonin is released in their brain, and biochemically it makes them happy. People who witness giving, right? Go watch a Christmas Carol or a movie like that about giving. You're going to sit there and be super happy when you're watching it. Serotonin is released physically, biochemically in your brain when you witness happiness, when you witness giving. So giving creates happiness. Happiness is the most powerful virus of all time, which also strengthens your immune system and kills off all these other idiotic viruses that are detrimental to you.
Well, I think we've covered. I think we've got a lot here. We've covered a lot of things. We didn't necessarily go in the most organized way, but it went where it went, and I'm glad that it did. And I just really appreciate your time and investment today. And welcome to the Monster Chats community. Before we let you go, just tell us, for people, and the cat's out of the bag. You've ruined my credibility and told everybody that I didn't know who you were. So
you're the majority. You're the majority. So I want more people to know who I am. So my name is David Meltzer.
So just tell them where they can find you. Tell them where they can find you.
The best thing is text me, 949-298-2905, because then you're invited to all my free trainings on Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. You're invited to all the free stuff, my free books. I don't sell anything. I create and make room for what I want. And it works for me. David Meltzer. You can find me at David Meltzer almost everywhere: LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram. So David Meltzer. And you can Google it if you forget. My website is dmeltzer.com, first initial, last name. Colin, I really appreciate you giving me this platform. The no bullshit zone is perfect for me.
Awesome. Appreciate it. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, share, and send us your feedback. The show's all about you, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks again, David.
Thank you. Thanks, Colin.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Monster Chats, presented by Monster VoIP, where we share the tools, methods, and best practices that business leaders use to build new connections, strengthen relationships, and impact sales in organizations of all shapes and sizes. If you have any questions from today's show and want to reach us directly, please text your question to 424-378-6966.